A poor boy was trying to keep two twin girls warm in a snowstorm when a young billionaire opened his car door and discovered something that made him tremble with emotion. The wind howled through the deserted streets of New York, carrying a curtain of snow that made visibility almost nil. In this hostile setting, a small figure stood out, bravely fighting against the elements. Jack, a boy of only 5 years old, trudged along the ice-covered sidewalk, his thin body hunched over two small bundles that moved in his arms. "Shh! Emma, Olivia," he whispered, his voice nearly swallowed up by the roar of the storm. "It'll be all right, I promise." The 2-year-old twins, curled against their brother's chest, let out muffled whimpers. Their faces, normally rosy and full of life, were pale and marred by the relentless cold. Jack looked around desperately, searching for any shelter that could protect them from the fury of the elements. The children's clothing, thin and worn, offered little protection against the biting cold. Jack's coat, which had once belonged to his father, now served as an improvised blanket for his sisters. He was shivering violently, his teeth chattering at a frantic rhythm, but he refused to give in to despair. "Mom and Dad are watching over us," he murmured to himself, both a prayer and a mantra. "They won't let anything bad happen to us." The snow fell harder, quickly piling up on the sidewalks and streets. The few cars that passed barely noticed the 3 small figures struggling against the storm. Jack felt his strength draining with every step. The combined weight of Emma and Olivia, along with the effort to remain standing against the merciless wind, was depleting his last reserves of energy. As Jack fought to keep moving, a powerful roar cut through the air, momentarily overpowering the howl of the wind. Strong headlights pierced the white curtain of the snowstorm, illuminating the desolate scene like a celestial spotlight. An Aston Martin DB11, its silver body gleaming even under the accumulating layer of snow, glided down the street like a shark cutting through water. Inside the luxurious vehicle, insulated from the external chaos, Ryan Matthews absent-mindedly adjusted the heater. At 28 years old, Ryan was the personification of success. Perfectly styled black hair, an Italian-tailored suit, and a watch worth more than many earn in a year. His piercing blue eyes were fixed on the road ahead, his mind already on the next deal, the next acquisition. It was then that something caught his attention, a dark blotch against the blinding white of the snow. Ryan frowned, instinctively slowing the car. As he approached, the shape took form, turning into something that made his heart skip a beat. Children. 3 little children alone in the snowstorm. Ryan felt a wave of inexplicable emotion wash over him. Something about that scene, about those unprotected children, struck a chord long dormant in his chest. Without thinking twice, he pulled over. The contrast was shocking. The opulent luxury of the Aston Martin, with its leather and fine wood interior, looked obscene next to the ragged and shivering figures on the sidewalk. Ryan hesitated for a moment, his hand on the door handle. Part of him, molded by years in the ruthless business world, told him to move on. It wasn't his problem. He had commitments, meetings, an empire to run. But another part of him, a voice from his almost forgotten past, screamed at him to act, to help. With a decisive motion, Ryan opened the car door. The icy wind hit him like a punch, knocking the breath out of him. He staggered for a moment, shocked by the intensity of the cold. "Hey!" he shouted, his voice nearly lost in the storm. "Are you all right?" Jack lifted his head, his eyes wide with fear and distrust. He clutched his sisters tighter, as if afraid the well-dressed stranger might tear them from his arms. Ryan approached slowly, hands raised in a gesture of peace. It was then that his eyes caught something that made his world spin. A necklace. A simple silver necklace hanging around the boy's neck. Time seemed to freeze. The snowstorm, the cold, everything disappeared. Ryan was transported 20 years into the past, to a day that changed his life forever. He was 8 years old, hungry, scared, alone. The city streets were a hostile labyrinth for an orphan boy. Then she appeared. A woman with a kind smile and gentle eyes. She took him home, fed him, cared for him, and her daughter, Sarah, a girl with golden hair and an easy laugh, became his first true friend. The day he left, determined to change his fate, Ryan gave Sarah the only item of value he possessed, his mother's necklace. A silent promise that one day he would return, that one day he would repay the kindness he had received. And now, 2 decades later, there was the necklace, on the neck of a frightened boy fighting to protect his sisters from a cruel world. Ryan felt his legs give way. He leaned against the car, trembling but not from the cold. A storm of emotions tore through him, more intense than the snowstorm around them. "Come," he finally said, opening the back door of the car. "I'm getting you out of this cold." For a moment, Jack hesitated. His short life had been a lesson in the dangers of the world, in how trusting could be perilous. But the cold was relentless, and his sisters were growing quieter by the minute in his arms. With a reluctant nod, he moved toward the car. The heated interior of the Aston Martin felt like stepping into another world. The smell of new leather and the gentle hum of the luxury engine were alien to the children. Emma and Olivia, feeling the warmth, started to squirm and whimper softly. Ryan watched them through the rearview mirror, his heart clenched tight. The children's wet clothes, their faces marked by cold and hunger, were a painful reminder of his own past. A past he had spent years trying to forget, buried beneath layers of success and wealth. "What's your name?" he asked softly, starting the car. "Jack," came the hesitant reply. "And these are Emma and Olivia." Ryan nodded, a sad smile on his lips. "Nice to meet you, Jack, Emma, and Olivia. My name is Ryan. I'm taking you somewhere safe, okay?" As the car slid through the snow-covered streets, Ryan couldn't help but glance repeatedly at the necklace around Jack's neck. Each glimpse brought a fresh wave of memories. Sarah's laughter echoing in the modest house, the smell of freshly baked cookies, the feeling of, for the first time in his young life, being truly safe and loved. His hands gripped the steering wheel. How things had changed. From a starving street kid to one of the richest men in the country. He had everything he had ever dreamed of. Money, power, respect. And yet, at that moment, it all felt empty. The car finally stopped in front of a towering skyscraper in the heart of the city. Ryan guided the children through the marble lobby, ignoring the curious and sometimes disdainful glances from other residents. His apartment occupied the entire top floor. When the elevator doors opened, Jack couldn't hold back a gasp of awe. The place was huge, decorated with expensive works of art and elegant furniture. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city stretched out like a carpet of twinkling lights beneath the snowfall. "You can use the bathroom to clean up," Ryan said, indicating a door. "I'll get you some dry clothes and something to eat." While the children stepped away, Ryan found himself standing alone in his living room, feeling strangely out of place in his own home. The contrast between the luxury surrounding him and the children's precarious situation was stark and uncomfortable. Minutes later, Jack emerged from the bathroom, the twins cleaned up and wrapped in soft towels. His eyes, still cautious, roamed the space as though searching for a hidden trap. Ryan handed them a pile of clothes. Silk pajamas he usually kept for his nephews when they visited. They were far too big for Jack. For the twins, ridiculously long. But they were dry and warm, and that was all that mattered. "You must be hungry," Ryan said, leading them to the kitchen. He opened the fridge, frowning at its sparse contents. His life of fancy restaurant dinners and business meetings had not prepared him to feed hungry children. Finally, he managed to prepare some sandwiches and a canned soup he found in the back of a cupboard. It wasn't much, but the children's eyes lit up as if they'd been offered a royal feast. As they ate, Ryan couldn't take his eyes off the necklace. Finally, unable to contain his curiosity, he asked, "Jack, can you tell me more about that necklace? About your parents?" Jack swallowed hard, his eyes filling with tears. "It was an accident," he said quietly. "Mom and Dad were coming back from a trip. It went off the road. They said it was because of the snow." Ryan felt his heart tighten. "And what about your grandmother? Your mom's mother?" Jack shook his head sadly. "Grandma went to heaven last year. She took care of us after Mom and Dad were gone. But then she got sick." The pieces of the puzzle began to fit together in Ryan's mind, forming a picture that left him dizzy. Sarah, the girl who had once been his friend, his savior, was gone. The woman who had taken him in when he had nothing was gone too. And these children, The last traces of the family that had changed his life were now alone in the world. Ryan stood abruptly, walking to the window. His reflection stared back at him, an accomplished man in a fine suit, but with eyes haunted by ghosts of the past. He had made a promise all those years ago, a silent promise to repay the kindness he had received, and now fate was presenting him with that opportunity in a way he could never have foreseen. But what could he do? His life had no room for children. He barely knew how to take care of himself, always depending on assistants and staff for even the most basic tasks. How could he take on responsibility for 3 such fragile lives? And yet, when he turned and saw Jack, Emma, and Olivia sitting at his table, small and vulnerable, Ryan felt something awaken within him. A resolve he hadn't felt since his days on the streets, fighting to survive. "Jack," he called softly, approaching the table, I need to make some calls. "You can stay here tonight, okay? Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do." Jack nodded, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. The twins were already dozing, their little heads resting on the table. Ryan guided them to the guest room, helping them settle onto the enormous king-size bed. Jack fought to keep his eyes open, as if he feared that upon sleeping, everything might vanish. "It's all right," Ryan assured him, pulling the covers over them. "You're safe here, I promise." When he finally left the room, closing the door softly behind him, Ryan felt the full weight of the situation descend on his shoulders. He walked to his office, loosening his tie as he sank into the leather chair behind his desk. His gaze wandered around the room, settling on the framed diplomas, photos of handshakes with celebrities and politicians, and Entrepreneur of the Year awards. Everything seemed so empty now, so meaningless in the face of the human drama unfolding in his guest room. Ryan picked up the phone, his fingers hovering over the keypad. Who could he call? The police. Social services. The idea of turning those children over to the system made his stomach churn. He knew all too well what it was like to be just a number, a statistic, a case to be processed and filed away. With a heavy sigh, he placed the phone back in its cradle. Not tonight. Tonight he would let the children sleep in peace, away from the cold and fear. Tomorrow, he would think of a solution. The hours dragged on. Ryan tried to work, answering emails, reviewing contracts, but his mind kept drifting back to the guest room, to the necklace around Jack's neck, to the memories he had tried so hard to bury. Around 3 in the morning, a piercing scream shattered the apartment's silence. Ryan leapt from his chair, heart pounding. He ran to the guest room, throwing the door open in one swift movement. Jack was sitting up in bed, eyes wide with terror, holding the twins who whimpered softly. Tears streamed down the boy's face, his small body trembling violently. Hey, it's all right," Ryan said gently, approaching the bed. "It was just a nightmare. You're safe here." Jack looked at him, fear in his eyes slowly turning to recognition. I dreamed we were back in the snow, that no one came to help us." Ryan sat on the edge of the bed, hesitant. He wasn't used to comforting children, but something inside him compelled him to try. "But someone did come, right? I came. And I promise I'll take care of you." The words left his mouth before he could think about the implications. Part of him, the pragmatic, calculating part that had made him a business magnate, screamed that he was making a mistake, that he was committing to something that would change his life forever. But another part, the part that still remembered the frightened boy he once was, knew there was no other choice. Jack, Emma, and Olivia looked at him, their eyes a mixture of hope and fear. Ryan realized that, in that moment, he had the power to change these children's fate, to break the cycle of loss and abandonment that had led them here. "Would you like some hot chocolate?" Ryan asked, trying to lighten the mood. The children nodded timidly. In the kitchen, while he prepared the drinks, Ryan reflected on how drastically his life had changed in just a few hours. That morning, he'd been a single businessman, concerned only with profits and acquisitions. Now he was making hot chocolate for 3 orphaned children in the middle of the night. When he returned to the room with the steaming mugs, he found the children a bit calmer. Jack remained alert, but the twins were already drifting back to sleep. "Thank you," Jack murmured, taking the mug in both hands. "For the chocolate and for everything." Ryan sat on the edge of the bed again, Jack, I know you must be scared and confused. I promise we'll figure out what to do, okay? You're not alone anymore." The boy nodded, his eyes fixed on the necklace hanging from his neck. "Mom used to say this necklace was special. That one day it would bring us luck." Ryan felt a lump in his throat. If Jack only knew how special that necklace truly was, how deeply it connected their stories. "Your mom was right," he said softly. "It's a very special necklace." They were quiet for a moment, the only sound the occasional clink of the mugs and the twins' soft breathing as they slept. "What's going to happen to us now?" Jack finally asked, his voice small and scared. Ryan took a deep breath. It was the question he had been avoiding since he brought the children to his apartment. The responsible answer would be to contact the authorities, make sure the children were placed under proper care. But looking into those innocent faces, remembering his own tumultuous childhood, he knew he couldn't just hand them over to the system. "I'm not exactly sure," he answered honestly, "but I promise I'll do everything I can to help you. You can stay here for now, and together we'll find the best way forward, okay?" Jack nodded, a small smile appearing on his lips. It was the first time Ryan had seen him smile, and it filled his heart with a mix of emotions he couldn't name. As the night wore on, Ryan remained in the room, watching over the children as they slept. He observed their relaxed faces, so peaceful now, and felt a determination grow within him. He didn't know how, but he would find a way to care for them, to protect them. When the first rays of sunlight began to filter through the curtains, Ryan got up quietly. There was much to do, calls to make, arrangements to be made, an entire life to reorganize. But for the first time in years, he felt truly alive, with a purpose that went beyond making money and closing deals. Looking one last time at the sleeping children, Ryan made a silent promise. He would honor the memory of Sarah and her mother. He would repay the kindness he had received so long ago, and somehow give Jack, Emma, and Olivia the home and love they deserved. With that thought, he left the room, ready to face the challenges ahead. The snowstorm outside had subsided, and a new day was beginning. A day that would mark the start of an unexpected journey for Ryan and the three children fate had placed in his path. Ryan Matthews gazed at the city through the window of his top-floor office, his thoughts as hazy as the gray sky over New York. A week had passed since he took Jack, Emma, and Olivia into his life, and each day brought new, unanswered questions. The necklace that Jack wore continued to haunt him, an enigma he couldn't fully decipher. Ryan knew he needed more information, but he also recognized that digging into the children's past without their knowledge was ethically tricky. After moments of hesitation, Ryan picked up his phone and dialed a number he rarely used. "Holloway Investigations," answered a raspy voice after 3 rings. "Frank, it's Ryan Matthews. I need your services. It's a delicate matter." There was a pause on the other end. "Matthews, it's been a while. What can I do for you?" Ryan took a deep breath before answering. "I need a discreet investigation into 3 children who are temporarily under my care. I want to know everything about their parents, grandparents, any living relative. And Frank, this has to be done with the utmost discretion." "Understood," Frank replied, his tone professional. "Send me the details you have, and I'll get started immediately." After hanging up, Ryan sent Frank an encrypted email with all the information he had on Jack, Emma, and Olivia. He knew he was entering dangerous territory, but the need to understand his connection to his own past drove him. The following days were a mix of anxiety and routine. Ryan juggled his corporate responsibilities with the children's care, always keeping an eye on his phone, waiting for news from Frank. It was on a Wednesday night while the children slept that the phone finally rang. "Ryan, it's Frank. I have some initial information for you. It's more complicated than we initially thought. We should meet in person." Ryan's heart raced. "All right, tomorrow, at the 5th Avenue Cafe, 7 a.m. The next morning, Ryan arrived at the cafe before the arranged time. He anxiously watched each person who entered, until Frank, a middle-aged man in a worn overcoat, sat across from him. "Here," Frank said, sliding a brown folder across the table. "This is what I've managed to find out so far about the children and their family." Ryan opened the folder with trembling hands, As his eyes skimmed the pages, he felt the world around him vanish. Each word was like a punch to the stomach, revealing a truth he never could have imagined. This can't be true," he murmured, more to himself than to Frank. "I triple-checked everything, Ryan. It's all true, at least what we've been able to confirm so far." The revelation was staggering. Sarah, the children's mother, was the same Sarah Ryan had known in his childhood, the girl with golden hair who had been his first true friend, the daughter of the woman who had taken him in when he had nothing. Ryan closed his eyes, letting the memories flood his mind. He saw himself at 8 years old, shivering in a dark alley, the sound of footsteps approaching, then a gentle voice. "Hello there, sweetheart. Are you all right?" Margaret, Sarah's mother, extending her hand, not just offering food, but a chance to start anew. Days later, in the Thompsons' modest home, meeting Sarah, her bright eyes, her contagious laughter, the nights studying together, the shared dreams of a better future. Ryan returned to the present, his mind spinning with the implications of this discovery. Sarah, his childhood friend, the girl who had inspired him to dream of something bigger, was the mother of Jack, Emma, and Olivia. And now, by a cruel twist of fate, her children were in his care. "There's more," Frank said, breaking into his thoughts. "About the accident that killed the children's parents, there are some details that don't quite add up." Ryan frowned. "What kind of details?" Frank lowered his voice. "It's too early to say for sure. I need to investigate further, but something tells me there might be more to this story than a simple car accident." The weight of this information fell on Ryan like a ton of bricks. It wasn't enough to discover that the children were the offspring of his old friend. Now there was the possibility that her death involved mysterious circumstances. Thanking Frank and paying him generously for his continued services, Ryan left the cafe with his mind in turmoil. As he walked through the busy streets of New York, memories of his childhood mixed with the recent revelations. He remembered the day he left the Thompsons' house, determined to make something of his life. Margaret's tight hug, tears in Sarah's eyes, and the promise he made to himself to one day repay all the kindness he'd received. Arriving at his apartment, Ryan found the children playing in the living room, supervised by the nanny he'd hired. Jack looked up, smiling timidly, and Ryan felt his heart tighten. The boy was so much like Sarah. He had the same bright eyes and warm smile. "How was your day?" Ryan asked, forcing a smile as he joined the children on the floor. While Emma and Olivia chattered about their drawings, Jack talked about the book he was reading. Ryan found himself torn. Part of him wanted to gather the children in a hug and tell them everything, that a profound connection tied them together. Another part feared the complications that revelation would bring, especially with new doubts about the circumstances of their parents' death. That night, after putting the children to bed, Ryan stood at the window of his office, contemplating the illuminated city below. The contrast between his current life and his origins had never felt so stark. He thought of his first years in business, the fierce determination that had driven him. Every closed deal, every rung climbed on the corporate ladder, was proof he'd overcome his humble origins. But at what cost? Ryan sighed, returning to the present. Years had passed, and now fate had entwined their lives again in the most unexpected way possible. He felt an overwhelming internal conflict. On one hand was the carefully constructed life he led, the corporate empire, powerful connections, and luxurious lifestyle he'd grown used to. Taking care of 3 children didn't fit into this world of business dinners and board meetings. On the other hand, there was the debt of gratitude he'd carried for years, the chance to honor the memory of Margaret and Sarah, to finally fulfill the promise he'd made so long ago. Ryan ran a hand over his face, feeling the weight of every decision that had led him to this moment. He thought of the many times he chose financial success over personal connections, of the lost opportunities to reconnect with his adoptive family. But then the image of Jack, Emma, and Olivia came to mind, their smiles, their innocence, the fragile trust they were slowly placing in him, and Ryan realized that, for the first time in years, he felt genuinely alive. The children had brought a sense of purpose and joy that no $1 million contract could ever match. With a deep sigh, Ryan made his decision. He would care for the children, at least temporarily, while searching for the best solution for them and investigating further into the mystery surrounding their parents' death. It wouldn't be easy. It would require sacrifices, changes in his routine, and possibly in his career. But it was the least he could do to honor Sarah and Margaret's memory. Sitting at his desk, Ryan began making a list. He would need to rearrange his schedule, delegate more responsibilities at work, maybe even consider moving to a bigger home. And, most importantly, he would need to continue his discreet investigation into the circumstances of Sarah's death and her husband's. As he worked on his plan, Ryan felt both determination and apprehension. For the first time in a long time, his actions were motivated not just by profit or power, but by a genuine sense of duty and connection. Still, the implications of what Frank had hinted about the accident weighed heavily on his mind. The next morning, Ryan woke up early, determined to start this new phase of his life on the right foot. He made breakfast for the children, something he'd never done before, and sat with them at the table. "Kids," he began, his serious tone capturing their attention, "I know the last few weeks have been confusing and difficult for you, but I want you to know I'm here for you, all right? We'll figure this out together." Jack looked at him with a mixture of surprise and caution. You mean we can stay?" Ryan felt his heart tighten at the vulnerability in the boy's voice. "Yes, Jack, you can stay here with me for now, and I promise I'll do my best to take care of you." The smile that lit up Jack's face was like a ray of sunlight after a long storm. Emma and Olivia, although too young to fully understand the situation, seemed to sense the change in the air, their little faces lighting up with joyful smiles. In that moment, looking at the hopeful faces of the children, Ryan knew he had made the right decision. The road ahead would be challenging, full of obstacles he could barely imagine. But for the first time in years, he felt truly on the right path. Ryan knew there was still much to uncover. The mysterious circumstances surrounding Sarah's death, the possible danger still looming over the children, and the challenges of integrating 3 young lives into his meticulously organized existence. But he was determined to face each obstacle, one at a time. As he watched Jack help the twins with their breakfast, Ryan made a silent promise. He would honor the memory of Sarah and Margaret, not just by caring for their children, but by discovering the truth about what had really happened to them. He would become the man they always believed he could be, a man who valued family, compassion, and integrity above material success. The Ryan Matthews who had begun this discreet investigation was no longer the same man. Transformed by the discovery of his connection to the children and by the memory of the impact Sarah's family had had on his life, he was ready to embark on a new journey, one that would lead him back to his roots, to the values that truly mattered, and to a quest for truth that might change everything. As the morning went on and the day's routine began to unfold, Ryan found himself alternating between smiling at the children and moments of deep reflection. The future was uncertain, full of challenges and possible dangers. But with Jack, Emma, and Olivia by his side, and with a determination to discover the truth about his past, he felt more prepared than ever to face it. Ryan knew he would have to tread carefully. The children had already endured so much trauma, and he didn't want to add more stress to their lives. At the same time, if there was something suspicious behind their parents' deaths, he needed to uncover it, not just out of a sense of justice, but to ensure the children's safety as well. He decided to continue the investigation in parallel with his efforts to create a stable and loving environment for Jack, Emma, and Olivia. He would be patient, cautious, gathering information gradually while carefully watching for any sign that the children might be in danger. As the day progressed, Ryan found himself immersed in a routine he could never have imagined for himself. Business meetings were interspersed with drawing sessions with the twins. Important phone calls were interrupted by Jack asking for help with homework. And surprisingly, Ryan found he didn't mind the interruptions. In fact, they brought an unexpected joy to his day. That night, after putting the children to bed, Ryan withdrew to his office. He picked up the folder Frank had given him, rereading the information, searching for any detail he might have missed. There were still so many unanswered questions. Why had Sarah never sought him out after all these years? What exactly had she been doing before her death? And most importantly, what really happened on that fateful night. Ryan knew he was only scratching the surface of a much larger mystery, but as he looked at the photo of Sarah that Frank had included in the report, an adult woman, yet still with that same smile he remembered from his childhood, he made another silent promise. "I'll find out the truth, Sarah," he murmured to the photo. "For you, for your children, and for everything your family did for me, no matter how long it takes or what it costs." With that promise echoing in his mind, Ryan closed the folder and prepared for another day in his new life. A life that now balanced the corporate world he knew so well with the uncharted territory of being a guardian to 3 orphaned children, all while unearthing long-buried secrets. With that promise still resonating, Ryan closed the folder and readied himself for bed. His new life a juggling act between the corporate world and caring for 3 children, all while uncovering secrets that had lain hidden for years. He knew the road ahead would be filled with challenges. Keeping his investigation discreet while caring for the children would require delicate balance. Ryan would have to be cautious, patient, and, above all, put Jack, Emma, and Olivia's well-being first. As he prepared to sleep, Ryan couldn't help feeling a mixture of anxiety and resolve. The mystery surrounding Sarah and her husband's death troubled him, but he was determined to uncover the truth, whatever the cost. Lying in bed, Ryan reflected on how drastically his life had changed in such a short time. From a solitary executive concerned only with profits, he now found himself guarding 3 vulnerable children and investigating a possible crime. The soft sound of the children's breathing in the next room comforted him. Despite the uncertainties and challenges ahead, Ryan felt a peace he hadn't experienced in years. He now had a purpose that was bigger than himself, something greater to fight for. With that comforting thought, Ryan finally fell asleep, ready to face whatever the future held. The mystery was only just beginning to unravel, and he was determined to see it through. For the children's sake, for Sarah and Margaret's memory, and for the person he knew he could become. The weeks that followed brought a series of changes to Ryan Matthews' luxurious apartment. What was once a minimalist and immaculate space, designed to impress clients and business partners, now teemed with life and occasional chaos. One sunny Saturday morning, Ryan awoke to the sound of children's laughter echoing down the hallway. Entering the living room, he was met by a scene unimaginable just a month ago. Emma and Olivia, still in pajamas, were building an elaborate pillow fort, while Jack supervised the operation with the seriousness of an experienced architect. "Good morning, kids," Ryan said, trying to hide his amazement at the transformation of his living room. Jack turned quickly, his eyes instantly wary. "Sorry about the mess, Mr. Matthews. We'll clean it all up, I promise." Ryan felt a pang in his chest at the tension in the boy's voice. Despite the weeks they'd spent together, Jack still kept a protective and cautious stance, especially when it came to his sisters. "It's all right, Jack," Ryan assured him with a smile. "Actually, it looks like fun. Can I join you?" The surprise on Jack's face was evident, but he nodded slowly. "Sure, if you want to." Ryan sat on the floor, feeling awkward and out of place. Emma immediately handed him a pillow, her little face shining with a confident smile. "You can be the guard of the castle," she declared, and Ryan couldn't help laughing at the seriousness in her voice. As they played, Ryan kept an eye on Jack. The boy gradually relaxed, but still maintained a watchful gaze on his sisters. It was as though he carried the weight of the world on his small shoulders. Over the days, Ryan worked hard to create a routine that provided stability for the children. Breakfast together every morning, even if it meant getting up earlier and sacrificing precious sleep. He learned to make pancakes. After several disastrous attempts that made the twins laugh and Jack look on with suspicion, and discovered that the simple act of sharing a meal could create genuine moments of connection. Evenings brought new challenges. Ryan, accustomed to working late, now found himself navigating the unfamiliar territory of bedtime stories and monster checks under the bed. It was during one of those nights that he had a revelation. Olivia had had a nightmare and was crying inconsolably. Unsure what to do, Ryan suddenly remembered how Margaret, Sarah's mother, used to comfort him when he had nightmares during his brief stay with the family. Gently, he picked Olivia up and began to hum softly. rocking her as Margaret once did for him. Gradually, the little girl's sobs subsided, and she fell asleep in his arms. Ryan froze, amazed by the trust this tiny life placed in him. Jack, who was silently watching from the doorway, seemed equally surprised. You're good at that," he murmured, almost reluctant to admit it. Ryan felt a warmth spreading through his chest. "I had a good teacher," he replied softly, thinking of Margaret. The days turned into weeks, and Ryan found himself immersed in a world he never imagined for himself. Business meetings were interspersed with helping out with homework. Important phone calls were interrupted by discussions about which movie to watch on family movie night, a tradition he inadvertently started, and which the children now considered sacred. One afternoon, while helping Jack with a science project, Ryan realized how much had changed. The boy, usually so reserved, enthusiastically talked about the experiment they were conducting, his eyes shining with excitement. He reminded Ryan so much of Sarah that he felt a lump in his throat. "You know, Mr. Matthews," Jack said hesitantly, "you're not as bad as I thought you were in the beginning." Ryan laughed, surprised by the boy's frankness. "Well, thank you, Jack. You're not bad yourself." That night, after the children were in bed, Ryan sat in his office, reflecting on the changes in his life. His gaze wandered to a framed photo on his desk. Himself, much younger, alongside Sarah and Margaret. He could barely believe that the frightened street boy he once was could have become the man he was today. The lessons Margaret taught him about unconditional love, patience, and the importance of family were resurfacing now, guiding him on his unexpected journey as guardian to these 3 children. The sound of soft footsteps pulled him from his thoughts. Jack stood at the door, looking small and vulnerable in pajamas that were too big. "Everything okay, Jack?" Ryan asked, concerned. The boy hesitated before answering. I just wanted to say thank you for taking care of us. I know it's not easy." Ryan felt his heart tighten. He stood up and knelt in front of Jack, placing his hands on his shoulders. "Jack, you're not a burden, you're a gift. And I promise I'll always be here for you, okay?" For a moment, Jack's brave facade crumbled, and he hugged Ryan tightly. It was the first time the boy had initiated physical contact, and Ryan felt tears forming in his eyes. While holding Jack, Ryan thought of how much he still had to learn, how many challenges lay ahead. But in that moment, feeling the small body trembling in his arms, he knew he was exactly where he needed to be. The adjustment was far from perfect. There would be difficult days, moments of doubt and frustration, but with each small victory, each earned smile, each bit of trust gained, Ryan felt they were building something special. A family, unconventional and unexpected, but a family nonetheless. Night fell over New York, draping the skyscrapers in a blanket of darkness dotted with thousands of lights. On the 50th floor of one of those towering buildings, Ryan Matthews sat in his office, the computer screen illuminating his tense face. The children slept in the next room, unaware of the emotional storm raging within the man who had taken them in. Ryan took a deep breath, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. He had been putting off this moment for weeks, fearing what he might discover. But he could no longer ignore the questions that haunted him. Steeling his resolve, he began to type, researching the accident that had claimed the lives of Jack, Emma, and Olivia's parents. The initial search brought up little more than what he already knew. A car accident on a rainy night, a dangerous curve, a guardrail that gave way. But as Ryan dug deeper, disturbing details began to emerge, contradictory police reports. Witnesses whose statements seemed to have been altered, and more intriguingly, mentions of an internal investigation at the company where Sarah worked, an investigation abruptly shut down after her death. Ryan frowned, unease growing in his chest. Something was off. The accident, which initially seemed a tragic coincidence, now reeked of premeditation. Lost in thought, Ryan barely noticed when the office door opened silently. Jack stood there, eyes sleepy but widening at the worried expression on Ryan's face. "Mr. Matthews, are you okay?" Ryan jumped, quickly minimizing the computer windows. "Jack, what are you doing up so late?" The boy hesitated, his bare feet shifting on the carpet. I had a dream about Mom and Dad." Ryan's heart sank. He gestured for Jack to come closer, pulling him into an awkward hug. "Do you want to tell me about the dream?" Jack nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the floor. "We were in the car. It was raining really hard. Mom looked scared. She kept looking in the rearview mirror like someone was following us." Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. "Jack, do you remember anything else from that night? Any detail could be important." The boy furrowed his brow, concentrating. "Mom had a folder. She said it was really important, that we needed to give it to someone, but I can't remember who." Ryan nodded, his mind working furiously. The folder, the sense of being followed. Everything pointed to something far bigger than a simple accident. "Jack," Ryan said softly, "you did the right thing telling me. I promise I'll find out what happened to your parents." The boy looked at Ryan, his eyes shining with a mix of hope and fear. "Do you think it wasn't an accident?" Ryan hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I'm not sure, Jack, but I promise I'll find out the truth, whatever it is." That night, long after he tucked Jack back into bed, Ryan stayed up, his mind spinning with the new information. He couldn't deny the growing sense that the accident was somehow connected to his own past. But how? And why? The following days were a mix of domestic routine and frantic investigation. Ryan juggled his responsibilities with the children and his job, while secretly delving deeper into the mystery surrounding Sarah's and her husband's deaths. It was on a Saturday afternoon, while helping Jack tidy his room, that the case took an unexpected turn. Ryan was putting some books away when he noticed something odd in Jack's old backpack. "Jack, what's this?" he asked, pulling out a hardcover notebook from the bottom of the bag. The boy's eyes widened in recognition. "Mom's diary! I completely forgot about it." With trembling hands, Ryan opened the diary. Sarah's elegant handwriting filled the pages, bringing back memories of a long-lost time. Can we read it together?" Jack asked hesitantly. Ryan nodded, sitting on the bed with Jack beside him. Together, they began to unravel the secrets Sarah had left behind. The first pages were innocent enough, reflections on daily life, thoughts about the children, plans for the future. But as they read on, Sarah's tone changed, becoming more urgent, more worried. "March 17th, Ryan read aloud. "I found something today. Numbers that don't add up, transactions that make no sense. I'm afraid of what this might mean, but I can't ignore it. I need to dig deeper." Jack looked at Ryan, confused. "What's she talking about?" Ryan felt a knot form in his stomach. "I think your mom discovered something wrong at the company where she worked. Jack, something dangerous." They kept reading, each revelation more alarming. Sarah described a complex web of corruption and fraud that reached the highest levels of the company. Then one entry made Ryan's blood run cold. "April Sue, I can't believe what I found out today. Everything somehow connects back to R.M. Could it be possible? After all these years?" Ryan closed his eyes, feeling a wave of guilt and fear wash over him. R.M. His initials. Somehow, he was connected to all this. "Mr. Matthews," Jack's voice brought him back. "What does that mean?" Ryan looked at the boy, seeing in him an echo of Sarah, the friend he'd abandoned so many years ago. "It means we have a lot more to discover, Jack. And maybe I'm more involved in this than I realized." In the days that followed, Ryan and Jack dug deeper into Sarah's diary. Every page revealed new layers to the mystery, painting a dark picture of conspiracy and danger. Sarah wrote about secret meetings, hidden documents, and veiled threats. She was convinced she had uncovered something huge, something that could take down not just the company, but powerful figures across the country. "She was so brave," Jack murmured one night, his small hands clutching the diary. "Why didn't she tell anyone?" Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "Sometimes, Jack, when we discover something so big and dangerous, it's hard to know who to trust. Your mom was trying to protect you." The final entries in the diary were the most disturbing. Sarah wrote about feeling watched, about strange cars parked outside her house. She mentioned a folder, the same folder Jack remembered in his dream, containing all the evidence she had gathered. "May 10. I can't wait any longer. I need to give this information to someone I can trust. I thought about but after all these years, no, I need to find someone else. Tomorrow, I'll take the kids to a safe place and do what needs to be done. God protect us. It was her last entry. 2 days later, Sarah and her husband would die in that mysterious accident. Ryan closed the diary, feeling nauseated. Everything pointed to an elaborate crime, a staged accident to silence Sarah. And somehow, he was at the center of it all. "Jack," he said softly, "is there anything you haven't told me? Anything your grandma might have mentioned before she passed?" The boy was quiet for a long moment, his eyes fixed on the diary. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Grandma told me. She told me to trust the man with the silver necklace, that he'd help us when we needed it." Ryan felt like he'd been punched in the gut. The silver necklace, the same one he'd given to Sarah so many years ago, the same one Jack was wearing now. "Jack," he said, his voice trembling, "I think it's time I told you a story. A story about a street kid, a kind family, and a promise made a long time ago." As the night wore on, Ryan shared with Jack the story of his past, of how Sarah's family had saved him, of how he left in search of a better life, and of how, in the process, he lost himself, forgetting the people who mattered most. Jack listened silently, his eyes wide with surprise and understanding. When Ryan finished, the boy looked at him with a maturity beyond his years. "Is that why you helped us? Because you knew my mom?" Ryan nodded, tears forming in his eyes. "At first, yes, but now it's because I love you all, Jack. You, Emma, Olivia. And I promise I'll do whatever I can to keep you safe and find out what happened to your parents." Jack threw himself into Ryan's arms, quietly sobbing. For a long moment, they stayed like that, united in their grief and determination. When they finally pulled apart, Ryan saw fear and courage mingled in Jack's eyes. "What do we do now?" the boy asked. Ryan took a deep breath, his mind racing with the implications of everything they'd discovered. The danger that Sarah had faced might still be out there, waiting. Those responsible for her death might come after the children, or him. "Now," Ryan said, his voice firm with a newfound resolve, "we fight. We fight for the truth, for justice, and for your mother's memory. But most of all, Jack, we stick together, like a family." Jack nodded, a small smile forming on his lips despite his tears. "Like a family," he repeated. As night deepened over the city that never sleeps, Ryan Matthews and Jack remained awake, bound by a tie forged through tragedy and hope. The road ahead would be dangerous, filled with secrets and hidden threats. But together they would face whatever came, determined to uncover the truth and honor the memory of those they'd lost. Sarah's diary lay between them, a silent witness to the secrets yet to be revealed and the dangers that lay in wait. But it was also a reminder of the love and courage that would guide them through the darkness that was closing in. Ryan looked out the window at the city's bright lights below. Somewhere out there were the answers they sought and the enemies they feared. But here, in this apartment, he had found something he thought he'd lost forever: a family. With one last glance at Jack, and who had finally fallen asleep from exhaustion, Ryan made a silent promise. He would protect these children with his life, unearth the secrets of the past, and do whatever it took to ensure that Sarah's sacrifice had not been in vain. The journey ahead would be long and perilous, but Ryan Matthews was ready to face it. For the first time in years, he had a purpose greater than himself, a reason to fight that went beyond money or power. As the first light of morning began to creep through the windows, Ryan finally allowed himself a moment of rest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries. But for now, in this brief moment of peace, he let himself feel hope. Hope that, no matter how dark the path ahead might seem, the light of truth and love would guide them. And with that hope in his heart, Ryan Matthews finally drifted off to sleep, ready to face whatever the future had in store for his new, unlikely family. As the first rays of sunlight began to illuminate New York's horizon, Ryan finally succumbed to sleep, his body and mind exhausted by the night's revelations. Jack, still clutching his mother's diary, slept peacefully beside him. The hours passed, and the apartment gradually filled with the familiar sounds of morning. Emma and Olivia, unaware of the previous night's discoveries, ran to Jack's room, surprised to find Ryan asleep there. "Shh," Jack whispered to his sisters, putting a finger to his lips. "Let Mr. Matthews sleep a bit longer." Carefully, the three children left the room, closing the door silently behind them. In the kitchen, Jack, taking on the role of responsible older brother, started preparing a simple breakfast for his sisters, his mind still processing everything he had learned. When Ryan finally woke, he found the children in the living room, Jack reading a story to the twins. For a moment, he simply watched, his heart filled with a mix of love and determination. "Good morning, kids," he said softly, entering the room. Jack looked up, meeting Ryan's eyes. There was a new understanding between them, a bond forged by the night's revelations. "Good morning, Mr. Matthews," Jack replied, his voice carrying a weight that shouldn't belong to someone so young. Ryan knelt beside them, hugging the three children. "What do you say we go out today? Maybe have a picnic in the park?" The twins squealed with delight, but Jack hesitated, casting a meaningful glance at Ryan. "Don't worry," Ryan whispered to him. "We'll handle this together. But today, let's just be a family, okay?" Jack nodded, a small smile forming on his lips. "Okay, family." While the children ran off to get ready for the outing, Ryan remained in the living room for a moment, his gaze falling on Sarah's diary, carefully hidden among Jack's books. He knew the days ahead would be challenging, filled with danger and uncertainty. But looking at the children, the family they had unexpectedly become, Ryan felt a renewed resolve. Whatever the future held, they would face it together. And somehow, he would make sure the truth came out and Sarah's memory was honored. With that thought, Ryan joined the children, ready for a day of normalcy before the storm he knew was coming. The mystery of Sarah's past, the connections to his own past, and the dangers that surrounded them would have to wait. Today, they would simply be a family, enjoying a sunny day in the park. And so, this chapter ended with the promise of more revelations and challenges yet to come, but also with the certainty that, united, they would find the strength to face whatever fate had in store. Ryan Matthews stood before the imposing glass and steel building, his reflection distorted in the mirrored windows. Sarah's diary weighed in his pocket like an anchor, constantly reminding him why he was here. With a deep sigh, he entered the building and walked toward the elevators with determined steps. On the 50th floor, the doors opened onto a silent, elegant corridor. Ryan headed to the last door, where a gold plaque read, "Victor Hartley, CEO." He hesitated for a moment, his hand hovering over the handle. Victor had been his mentor, the man who guided him through the intricacies of the corporate world. And now, Ryan was about to accuse him of being involved in Sarah's death. With a resolute gesture, he knocked and entered. Victor Hartley, a man in his 60s with graying hair and shrewd eyes, looked up from his desk. A smile formed on his lips at the sight of Ryan. "Ryan, my boy. What a pleasant surprise. To what do I owe this visit?" Ryan closed the door behind him, his face a mask of seriousness. "Victor, we need to talk. It's about Sarah Thompson." Victor's smile faltered for an instant, so briefly that Ryan almost missed it. "Sarah Thompson doesn't ring a bell." "Don't lie to me, Victor," Ryan said, his voice low and dangerous. He pulled the diary from his pocket and placed it on the desk. "She worked for you. And she discovered things she shouldn't have." Victor looked at the diary, his face a mixture of emotions Ryan couldn't fully decipher. Finally, he sighed and leaned back in his chair. "I see you've done your homework, Ryan. What exactly do you think you know?" Ryan leaned forward, his hands on Victor's desk. "I know that Sarah uncovered irregularities at the company. I know she was investigating something big, something that led straight to you. And I know she died before she could expose the truth." Victor remained silent for a long moment, his eyes fixed on Ryan. When he finally spoke, his voice held a tone of emotion Ryan had never heard before. "You have no idea what you're getting yourself into, Ryan. Sarah, she was brilliant, fearless, maybe too fearless for her own good." Ryan felt his heart pound. "So you knew her? You knew what she was investigating?" Victor nodded slowly. I knew her, yes, and I knew what she was capable of. That's why I hired her in the first place. But things got out of control. As Victor spoke, peeling back layer after layer of corruption and intrigue, Ryan felt his world collapse. His mentor, the man he had admired for years, stood at the center of a web of lies and crimes that extended far beyond what he could have imagined. "Why?" Ryan asked, his voice trembling with anger and disappointment. "Why do all this?" Victor stood up, walking to the window. For a moment, he looked very old and very tired. "Power, Ryan. It's always about power. Once you reach the top, you realize there's always another rung to climb, another rival to crush." Ryan shook his head in disbelief. "And Sarah, she was just an obstacle to you." Victor turned, his eyes meeting Ryan's. "Sarah was complicated. She found out things she shouldn't have, yes, but there was more. She knew about your past, Ryan. She knew your connection to her family." Ryan felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. "What? How do you know that?" A sad smile tugged at Victor's lips. "I always knew, Ryan, from the day I met you. Why do you think I took you under my wing? You were the key to reaching Sarah, to the information she had." The implications of Victor's words hit Ryan like a tidal wave. His entire career, everything he had accomplished, was based on a lie. He had been used, a pawn in a much larger game. "The accident," Ryan murmured, feeling nauseous. "It wasn't an accident, was it?" Victor did not answer immediately, but his silence was enough. Rage surged through Ryan, white hot. In a swift movement, he grabbed Victor by the collar, slamming him against the window. "You killed her. You destroyed an entire family." Victor did not resist, his eyes filled with resigned sadness. "Things got out of hand, Ryan. I never wanted it to go that far." For a moment, Ryan considered doing something he would regret, but then Jack, Emma, and Olivia flashed through his mind. He couldn't throw everything away, not now that he had a family to protect. Slowly, he released Victor, stepping back. "It's over, Victor. I'm exposing all of it. Every sordid detail." Victor straightened his shirt, a defiant look in his eyes. "Think carefully, Ryan. Do you really think you can take on the people behind this? Think about the children. They've already lost their parents. Do you want them to lose you too?" A shiver ran down Ryan's spine. The veiled threat in Victor's words was clear. But he couldn't back down. Not now. "I'm thinking about the children, Victor. That's exactly why I'm doing this. To honor their parents' memory, and to make sure they grow up in a world that's a little less corrupt." With those words, Ryan grabbed Sarah's diary and headed to the door. Before leaving, he turned one last time to face Victor. "You will pay for this, Victor. One way or another, the truth will come out." Leaving a stunned Victor behind, Ryan walked out of the office, his mind swirling with the day's revelations. He knew he had crossed a line, that his life would never be the same. But for the first time in years, he felt truly alive, driven by a purpose greater than himself. Back at home, Ryan found Jack waiting for him, his eyes filled with worry. "How did it go?" the boy asked anxiously. Ryan knelt down, meeting Jack's gaze. "It was intense. I learned a lot, Jack. Things that will change everything." Jack nodded solemnly, a maturity beyond his years in his eyes. "Grandma always said the truth has a price, but it's worth paying." Ryan felt tears forming. "Your grandma was a wise woman, Jack. I wish I'd known her better." Jack smiled sadly. "She talked about you, you know." "Not much, but sometimes she mentioned the boy with the silver necklace. She said one day you'd come back to help us." Ryan pulled Jack into a tight embrace, feeling the weight of the responsibility he carried. He knew the days ahead would be difficult. Victor and his allies wouldn't stand by while he threatened to expose their crimes. That night, after settling the children in bed, Ryan sat in his office once more, Sarah's diary open before him. He knew he had to be careful with the information he had. One wrong move could place the children in jeopardy. As he weighed his options, Ryan couldn't help but think about how his life had changed. Just a few months ago, he was a successful executive, focused solely on his career. Now he was at the center of a conspiracy, responsible for 3 orphaned children and about to risk everything in the name of justice. The decision he was about to make could cost him his career, his reputation, maybe even his freedom. But looking at a photo of Sarah and the children he kept on his desk, Ryan knew he had no choice. He picked up his phone, dialing a number he'd memorized years ago but never used. "Hello, this is Ryan Matthews. I need to speak with the federal prosecutor. It's about a case of corporate corruption and murder." As he waited to be transferred, Ryan looked again at Sarah's photo. "I'm going to do it right this time," he murmured. "I promise." The path ahead would be dangerous and uncertain, but for the first time in his adult life, Ryan Matthews knew exactly who he was and what he was fighting for. And that, he realized, was worth more than any fortune or power he had ever desired. As the night wore on, Ryan remained in his office, meticulously organizing the information he had gathered. He knew every detail would be crucial in building a solid case against Victor and his associates. The weight of responsibility was immense, yet there was also a sense of purpose he had not felt in years. Around midnight, a soft knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. It was Jack, standing in the doorway with a worried expression. "You should be asleep," Ryan said gently. Jack shrugged. "I can't. I keep thinking about Mom, about what she found out." Ryan gestured for the boy to come in. Jack settled beside him, eyes scanning the papers strewn across the desk. "Your mom was very brave, Jack, and very smart. She wanted to do the right thing, no matter the cost." Jack nodded slowly. "Like you're doing now." Ryan felt a lump in his throat. "I'm trying, but I'm afraid, Jack. Afraid of what might happen to you if something goes wrong." The boy looked at Ryan with surprising intensity. "Grandma always said that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always necessary." Ryan couldn't help but smile. "Your grandma sounds like she was a very wise woman." "She was," Jack said, a touch of pride in his voice. "And she believed in you, Mr. Matthews. She said one day you'd come back to help us." Those words struck Ryan deeply. The trust Margaret had placed in him, even after all these years, was a testament to the kindness she had always shown. It was a reminder of the kind of person he wanted to be, the example he wanted to set for Jack, Emma, and Olivia. "Jack," Ryan said, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder, "I promise you, I'll do everything I can to honor your mother and grandmother's memory. It won't be easy, and there may be hard times ahead, but we're in this together, okay?" Jack nodded, his eyes shining with a mix of fear and determination. "Together," he repeated. In that moment, looking at the young boy beside him, Ryan felt a wave of certainty wash over him. No matter the risks, no matter what he had to sacrifice, he would do it for the children, for Sarah, for Margaret, and for the man he knew he could be. "Now, young man," Ryan said, standing up, "it's time to get back to bed. We have a long road ahead, and we'll need all the rest we can get." As he walked Jack back to his room, Ryan felt a peace he hadn't felt in a very long time. The future was uncertain, full of dangers and challenges, but he was no longer alone. He had a family to protect, a truth to reveal, and a promise to keep. With one last glance at the office, where the evidence of his investigation still lay scattered, Ryan closed the door. Tomorrow would be another day, another step toward justice, and he was ready to face it. Not as the ambitious executive he once was, but as the guardian and protector he had become. The chapter ended with Ryan lying in his bed, the soft sounds of the children's breathing in the next room lulling him to sleep. Before drifting off, he made one last silent promise. "Sarah, Margaret, I won't let you down this time. No matter what happens, I'll protect these kids and make sure the truth comes out." And with that thought, Ryan Matthews finally fell asleep, prepared to face the challenges waiting for him the next morning. Ryan's phone rang in the middle of the night, jolting him from a restless sleep. He groped in the darkness, heart pounding, dreading bad news after his confrontation with Victor. "Hello?" he answered, his voice hoarse with sleep. "Mr. Matthews," a distorted voice replied. "If you want answers, go to St. Mary's Hospital in Hartford, Connecticut. Room 237, come alone." Before Ryan could respond, the call ended. He sat there on the bed, mind racing. It could be a trap, but it could also be the key to unraveling the entire mystery. After a moment's hesitation, Ryan made his decision. He dressed quietly, leaving a note for Jack explaining that he had an important lead to follow and would be back soon. The drive to Hartford felt interminable. Ryan oscillated between anxiety and caution, wondering what or who was waiting for him at the hospital. By the time he arrived, the sun was beginning to rise, casting a golden glow over the city. At the hospital, Ryan headed to room 237, heart in his throat. He paused at the door, took a deep breath, and entered. Nothing could have prepared him for what he saw. Sarah Thompson, the woman he believed dead for months, was sitting in the hospital bed, alive and breathing. Her eyes widened when she saw him, a mix of recognition and confusion on her face. "Ryan," she whispered, her voice weak but unmistakable. Ryan felt his legs give out. He leaned against the wall, struggling for words. "Sarah? How? You're alive?" Sarah nodded slowly. "It's a long story. I didn't remember anything for a long time. The accident, it was terrible." Gradually, Sarah began to share her story. The accident had been real, but she had survived, albeit with severe injuries and memory loss. Without identification, unrecognizable due to her injuries, she'd been treated as a Jane Doe for months. Little by little, bits and pieces started coming back, Sarah explained, tears in her eyes. "My kids, my job, the danger. But it was all so foggy. I knew I couldn't just come back, not without being sure it was safe." Ryan listened in stunned silence. The guilt, grief, and anger he'd felt over the past months began to dissipate in the face of Sarah's reality. She was alive. "The kids," Sarah said suddenly, clutching Ryan's arm. "Jack, Emma, Olivia, where are they? Are they okay?" Ryan held her hand, tears in his own eyes. "They're fine, Sarah. They're with me. I've been taking care of them." The relief on Sarah's face was palpable. "Thank God. I just knew you'd find them." Ryan told Sarah about the past months, how the children came to him, the discoveries they made together. He spoke of the diary, the confrontation with Victor, and his determination to expose the truth. Sarah listened, alternating between tears and smiles. When Ryan finished, she squeezed his hands tightly. "You kept your promise, Ryan. After all these years, you came back for us when we needed you most." Ryan felt a knot in his throat. "I should have come back sooner. I should have been there for you." Sarah shook her head. "What matters is that you're here now, and together we can fix this." They spent the next hours planning their next steps. Sarah still needed medical care, but she was anxious to see her children. Ryan Ewan, for his part, could hardly wait to bring the good news to them. When Ryan finally returned to New York, he felt like he was floating. The joy of knowing Sarah was alive mingled with the anxiety of how the children would react. Jack was the first to sense something was different when Ryan walked into the apartment. "Mr. Matthews, what happened?" Ryan knelt in front of Jack, placing his hands on the boy's shoulders. "Jack, I have incredible news. Your mom, she's alive." Jack's eyes widened, a tumult of emotions crossing his face. "But how? Where is she?" Ryan gently explained everything. Jack listened in silence, tears running down his cheeks. When Ryan finished, the boy threw himself into Ryan's arms, sobbing. Emma and Olivia, though too young to fully understand, picked up on the atmosphere. Ryan hugged them too, his heart overflowing with love for this improbable family. The drive back to Hartford was charged with emotion. Jack oscillated between excitement and nervousness, bombarding Ryan with questions. The twins, feeling the anticipation, were unusually quiet. At the hospital, Ryan felt the weight of responsibility as he guided the children down the corridor. When they reached room 237, he paused, looking at Jack. "You ready?" Jack nodded, gripping Ryan's hand tightly. With a deep breath, Ryan opened the door. The moment Sarah saw her children was electric. Tears flooded her eyes, and she opened her trembling arms. "My babies," she sobbed. "You've grown so much." Jack hesitated for a moment, torn between the joy of seeing his mother and the loyalty he'd developed for Ryan. Then, with a sob, he rushed into Sarah's arms. Emma and Olivia, initially shy, soon joined the embrace, encouraged by Ryan. It was a scene of pure emotion, laughter, tears, and whispered promises never to be apart again. Ryan watched from a distance, his heart full. He knew his role in the children's lives would change now, but the gratitude in Sarah's eyes assured him he would always be part of this family. In the following days, while Sarah prepared to be discharged, Ryan helped the family reconnect. It was a delicate process, especially with the twins, who barely remembered their mother. One evening, while the children slept, Ryan and Sarah talked at length. He told her about his childhood, about how her family had saved him when he needed it most. "I never forgot your mother's kindness," Ryan said, his voice thick with emotion. He took out the silver necklace, the same one he'd given Sarah so many years ago. "This necklace, it led me to Jack. It's how everything began." Sarah touched the necklace, tears in her eyes. "Mom always said you would come back one day. She never lost faith in you, Ryan." The conversation continued through the night, both of them sharing stories, regrets, and hopes for the future. When the sun rose, they had forged a new understanding, a new friendship based on mutual gratitude and respect. As the days passed, the family adjusted to a new reality. Sarah, still recovering, temporarily moved into Ryan's apartment, which he insisted was best for everyone. Jack, initially torn between his mother and Ryan, soon found a balance. He relished having both in his life, often seeking Ryan for advice or comfort, even with Sarah back. The twins, in turn, flourished under the extra attention. Though initially cautious around Sarah, they soon grew attached to her, filling the house with laughter and endless chatter. Ryan watched all this with mixed joy and melancholy. He knew his role would change, that the children wouldn't rely on him as much anymore. Yet every smile and spontaneous hug reassured him that his place in this family was permanent. One night, as they all sat down for dinner, Sarah raised her glass in a toast. "To family," she said, looking directly at Ryan, "in all its shapes and sizes." The children giggled and toasted with their juice cups, while Ryan felt a tightness in his throat. He had left years ago in search of success and wealth, but now he realized the true treasure lay here, around this makeshift dinner table, with the family fate had returned to him. The road ahead would still be challenging. The threat of Victor and his associates still loomed, the full truth yet to be revealed. But as he looked around the table at Sarah and the children's smiling faces, Ryan knew that together they could handle anything. He had been given a second chance, not just to repay the kindness once shown to him, but to be part of something greater than himself. And Ryan was determined not to waste it. Later that night, after the children got ready for bed, Ryan found a moment alone with Sarah on the balcony. New York's sky glowed above them, a tapestry of lights against the darkness. "Thank you," Sarah said softly, her voice almost lost in the city noise. "For everything." Ryan shook his head. "No, Sarah, I should be thanking you. Your family saved me twice now. First when I was a kid, and now your kids reminded me of what really matters in life." Sarah smiled, tears shining in her eyes. "Mom always said you had a heart of gold. She'd be so proud of the man you've become." Ryan felt the lump in his throat tighten. "I just hope I can honor her memory and help keep you safe." Sarah placed a hand on his arm. "We'll face this together, Ryan, as a family." They stood there, gazing at the city, and Ryan felt a peace he hadn't known in years. The future was still uncertain, full of challenges and potential dangers, but he was no longer alone. He had a family, unconventional, brought together by extraordinary circumstances, but a family nonetheless. With that comforting thought, Ryan Matthews went back inside the apartment, ready to face whatever the future held. Together, they were stronger. Together, they would find truth and justice. And together, they would build a future filled with love, trust, and hope. As the night wore on, the family settled down to sleep. Ryan did his usual rounds, checking on each child. Jack slept soundly, a faint smile on his face. The twins were curled up around each other, their breathing in sync. Sarah lay in the guest room, finally at peace after months of uncertainty and fear. Ryan headed to his own room but paused at the door, looking back at the hallway leading to the others. The reality of the situation struck him again. This was no longer just his home, but a home for an entire family. Sitting on the edge of his bed, Ryan picked up the silver necklace, spinning it between his fingers. He thought of Margaret, of her unwavering kindness, and how she had changed the course of his life. He thought of Sarah, her courage and determination, and he thought of the children who had filled a void in his life he never knew existed. With a deep sigh, Ryan placed the necklace on his nightstand. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, decisions to make, plans to ensure everyone's safety. The threat of Victor and his associates still lurked, a shadow over their newfound happiness. Yet for the first time in a long while, Ryan didn't feel overwhelmed by the responsibility. Instead, he felt strengthened, anchored by the love and trust of this unexpected family. As he lay down, Ryan made one last silent promise, to Margaret, to Sarah, to the children, and to himself. He would protect this family with everything he had. He would face any challenge, overcome any obstacle. With that reassuring thought, Ryan Matthews closed his eyes, ready for whatever tomorrow might bring. The road ahead would be tough, but he was no longer alone. And that made all the difference. The months that followed the discovery that Sarah was alive were a roller coaster of emotions and revelations. As her health improved, her memories returned with greater clarity, filling in the crucial gaps in her investigation. Sarah, Ryan, and Jack spent hours in Ryan's office, piecing together the complex web of corruption Sarah had discovered before the accident. Emma and Olivia, too young to fully grasp the seriousness, sensed the importance of what was happening, often playing quietly in the corner while the adults worked. "It started here," Sarah said one evening, pointing to a document. "This transaction is what first caught my eye. It looked innocent, but the numbers didn't add up." Ryan nodded, impressed by Sarah's insight. "And that led you to dig deeper?" "Exactly," Sarah confirmed. "The more I dug, the uglier it got. Victor was at the center, but there were others, powerful people involved. Jack, who had become an integral part of the investigation, often offering surprisingly sharp perspectives, spoke up. "Is that why they tried to hurt you, Mom?" Sarah hugged her son, tears in her eyes. "Yes, honey. They were afraid of what I'd found." As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, the truth about the accident finally came to light. It hadn't been an accident at all, but a deliberate attempt on Sarah's life. The car had been sabotaged, the chosen road carefully set up to look like a tragic misfortune. The revelation sparked a mix of anger, relief, and a renewed determination to see justice served. Ryan, using his contacts and resources, worked tirelessly to build a solid case. He hired top lawyers, private investigators, and forensic experts to support the evidence Sarah had gathered. Days turned into nights, and nights into weeks. Ryan's home, once a sanctuary of order and minimalism, was now overflowing with paperwork, evidence boards and laptops buzzing with information. Yet amidst the chaos of the investigation, something beautiful was blooming. A family. Jack Hughes, with his keen mind and insatiable curiosity, became the unofficial assistant to Ryan and Sarah, soaking up every detail and making connections that often surprised the adults. Emma and Olivia, though still little, understood something important was happening. They did their best to help in their own way, whether by drawing pictures to cheer up the grown-ups or bringing snacks during long work sessions. One evening, while everyone was gathered in the living room surrounded by piles of documents, Sarah suddenly let out a laugh. The others turned to her, surprised. "Sorry," she said, wiping away a tear. "It's just, look at us. Who would have thought we'd be here like this after everything?" Ryan smiled, fully understanding. "Life has a funny way of surprising us, doesn't it?" Jack, seated between them, looked from one to the other. "But it's good, right? Us being together?" Sarah pulled her son into a hug. "It's more than good, honey. It's perfect." Finally, after months of preparation, they were ready to go public. Ryan arranged a press conference, with Sarah by his side. The world watched in astonishment as they revealed the extent of the corruption, presenting irrefutable proof against Victor and his associates. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Victor was arrested, along with several top-level executives. Investigations were launched into multiple companies and government bodies. The empire Ryan once helped build was crumbling, but he'd never felt more fulfilled. In the days following the expose, the family found themselves at the center of a media storm. Reporters camped outside the house, all vying for an exclusive interview. Ryan and Sarah worked together to shield the children from the frenzy, creating a bubble of normalcy amidst the chaos. One night, after the children were finally asleep, Ryan found Sarah on the balcony, gazing at the city. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, joining her. Sarah sighed, a small smile on her lips. "How unpredictable life is. A few months ago, I was alone in a hospital with no memory or hope. And now we're here," Ryan finished for her. "Yes," Sarah agreed. "We're here. Together." They fell silent for a moment, absorbing the magnitude of all they'd been through. "Ryan," Sarah finally spoke, her voice soft. "I never thanked you properly, for taking care of the kids and for not giving up, for—" Ryan interrupted her gently. "Sarah, you don't have to thank me. Your family gave me a second chance at life. All I did was pay that kindness back." Sarah took Ryan's hand, squeezing it. "My mom always said you had a heart of gold." She was right. With the truth finally exposed, the family began to heal old wounds and look toward the future. Ryan, seeing the impact of his actions, made a decision that would once again alter the course of his life. "I want to use my resources to make a difference," he announced during a family dinner. "I'm going to start a foundation to help families in tough situations, to fight corruption, to give people a second chance, like the one your mom gave me." Sarah smiled, touched. "Mom would be so proud, Ryan. She always knew you'd do great things." Jack, who had been listening intently, said, "Can I help? With the foundation? I mean—" Ryan smiled at the boy. "Of course you can, Jack. In fact, I'm counting on all of you to help." Emma and Olivia, not wanting to be left out, immediately began suggesting names for the foundation, each more creative and sometimes outrageous than the last. The room filled with laughter and animated conversation, the excitement of a new chapter hanging in the air. The months turned into years, and the family dynamic continued to evolve and strengthen. Sarah, fully recovered, returned to her career as a lawyer, now focused on social justice cases. Ryan, though still involved in business, devoted most of his time to the foundation created in Margaret's honor. Jack, now a teenager, inherited both his mother's passion for justice and Ryan's determination. He dreamed of becoming an investigative journalist, inspired by Sarah's courage and Ryan's commitment to the truth. Emma and Olivia, growing up in an environment full of love and support, each blossomed in her own way. Emma showed an early talent for art, while Olivia was fascinated by science. Both, however, shared the strong sense of family and compassion that characterized their home. One sunny Sunday afternoon, 5 years after the truth was revealed, the family gathered for a picnic in the park. Ryan watched Sarah playing with the twins, her laughter echoing in the air. Jack lay on the grass, absorbed in a book, occasionally glancing up to smile at his family. Ryan felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. He thought of Margaret, of the kindness she had shown a frightened street boy all those years ago. That single act of compassion had set off a chain of events that transformed not only his life, but the lives of so many others. "What are you thinking?" Sarah asked, sitting beside him. Ryan smiled, his eyes shining with emotion. "About how blessed we are, how one small act of kindness can change everything." Sarah nodded, understanding. "Mom always said kindness begets kindness. Look at us now, Ryan. Look at the family we've built, at the good we're doing in the world." Ryan glanced around the children he considered his own, the woman who was his best friend and partner in every sense but romantic. This was his family, unconventional, brought together by tragedy and triumph, but bound by a love stronger than blood. "You know," he said, taking Sarah's hand, "I think I finally understand what your mom meant when she told me I had a home with you. It's not about a place, it's about people." Sarah squeezed his hand, tears in her eyes. "You always had a home with us, Ryan, always." As the sun began to set, painting the sky gold and pink, The family packed up to head home. Ryan scooped Emma into his arms while Sarah held Olivia's hand. Jack walked between them, chatting excitedly about the book he was reading. Ryan looked up at the sky, thinking of Margaret. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything." And so this unconventional family, united by love, loss, and second chances, headed home, ready to face whatever challenges the future held. Together, Margaret's single act of kindness years ago had created ripples that would continue for generations. Through Ryan, Sarah, Jack, Emma, and Olivia, her legacy of compassion and courage lived on, touching countless lives and reminding everyone of the transformative power of love and kindness. As they reached home, dusk cast long shadows across the street. Ryan watched as the children ran inside, their excited voices echoing through the house. Sarah paused beside him on the porch, a gentle smile on her lips. "It's amazing, isn't it?" she said softly. "How everything worked out." Ryan nodded, feeling a rush of emotion. "Sometimes I still have to pinch myself to believe it's real." They stepped in together, the house welcoming them with familiar comfort. In the living room, Jack was already settled on the couch with his book, while Emma and Olivia excitedly debated which movie to watch after dinner. Ryan headed to the kitchen to start preparing dinner, a habit he'd learned and come to enjoy over the past few years. Sarah followed, gathering plates to set the table. As they worked side by side, Ryan couldn't help reflecting on how his life had changed. Once focused solely on work and success, he now found his greatest joy in these simple moments of domestic routine. Dinner was a cheerful affair as always. Stories were told, jokes were shared, and plans were made for the future. Ryan watched it all with a profound sense of gratitude. Later, after the kids had gone to bed, Ryan found himself alone on the porch, looking out at the city that never seemed to sleep. He pulled out the old silver necklace from his pocket, the same one he had once given Sarah, the same one Jack wore when their paths crossed again. Holding the necklace up in the moonlight, Ryan made a silent promise. He would continue Margaret's legacy of kindness. Through his foundation, through his family, he would strive to make the world a better place, one act of kindness at a time. Sarah joined him on the porch, wrapping an arm around him. "Everything all right?" Ryan smiled, tucking the necklace back into his pocket. "Everything's perfect." And it truly was. Not because their lives were free of problems or challenges, but because they faced everything together, as a family. As they stepped inside, Ryan took one last look at the city. The future was bright and full of possibilities. He couldn't wait to see what came next. The chapter closed not with an ending, but with the promise of many new beginnings. Ryan Matthews, and once a lonely street boy, was now the pillar of a family, a beacon of hope for many, and living proof of the transforming power of love and compassion. And so, night fell on the city, wrapping the house in a cloak of tranquility. Inside, a family rested, hearts filled with love, their dreams intertwined with the infinite possibilities of tomorrow. Margaret's legacy lived on through them, a flame of kindness and hope that would continue to light up the world for generations to come. As they settled in for the night, Ryan's thoughts turned to the future. There would be more challenges ahead, more moments of uncertainty and fear. But as he glanced at each room, Jack's, you, Emma, and Olivia's, and finally Sarah's, he felt a warmth unlike any he'd known before. It wasn't just his house anymore, it was a true home. And no matter what fate still held in store, one thing was certain. They would face it together, bound by a love that had proven stronger than any storm the world could conjure.